you will hear the Democrat presidential candidates in this 2020 election cycle talk about income inequality, and they tout it because they want to talk about their plans to somehow raise taxes on the rich, raise taxes on corporations, and bring more money into Washington because they think it's their job to redistribute it. This would be what socialism is. But there was a brilliant piece in the Wall Street Journal, actually by Phil Gramm, a former a U.S. senator from Texas, still here based in Texas, and John Early. And they took apart the data that the left points to all the time to claim that income inequality in America is a massive, massive problem. You need to learn this data, be able to repeat it, and tell your friends. So every time you hear someone on the left claiming income inequality is a major problem in America, you have a little bit of data to respond to them. The short story is this. Two factors that the Census Bureau does not take into account when it is telling you what the income inequality is, and they break the income groups in America into 5 segments, so top 20% down to lowest earning 20%. They keep using the word quintile, but it's kind of weird to say, so I'm going with 20%. In any case, data from the Census Bureau reports that the average person in the bottom 20% of America earns about $4,900 a year, so less than $5,000 a year, while the average top 20% earner, the average in the top 20% earns $295,000, almost $300,000. And the difference between those two is 60 times. So they're saying this is outrageous. How could we be in a country where the lowest 20% earn so little that the highest 20% earn 60 times more than the lower income earners? And actually, even though I really oppose socialism and the use of the federal government to redistribute wealth, I will tell you, most people react and say, well, we got to do something here. But what Phil Gramm did, a brilliant correction of this data that I can't wait to have. I want to urge you to share, to read this article. If you go to our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the home page under shows, drop down, list of links, you can read this article. Here's the short story. The data crunchers failed to include in this data 2 enormously significant things. One, they do not include what percent the top 20% income earners pay in taxes. So what they really have to work with after they're done paying taxes, both in absolute numbers and percent, of course, the top 20%, which is probably right, but they pay pretty much all the taxes that America pays. I mean, they pay the massive majority of taxes. So they're not really living on $295,000 a year. They're earning on something, they're living on essentially more like $110,000 a year. So the first factoid left out is how much people pay in taxes. Obviously, the lowest 20% pay virtually no taxes. So they're really living on this actual income that's been attributed to them. But the second point is, this data from the Census Bureau does not take into account all of the money that the federal government already collects from the high income earners and corporations and redistributes through existing programs. Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, housing assistance. It's something like 95 programs where money is already transferred from the wealthiest to the poorest by going up into the federal government to taxes, who then, in taxes, and the federal government takes that money and moves it on down to the lowest 20% income earners in America. So the net result of this wealth transfer, on average, that the lowest 20% people are not really earning $4,900 a year, or a little less than $5,000 a year. They actually are earning, based on the government transfers, private transfers, charitable, family sources, all that income, the average 20% lowest income earner in America is earning about $50,901. So pretty big difference. And then the highest income earners are receiving virtually none of this government transfer. I'm not saying they should. I'm saying that the highest income earners paying the most in taxes are also not the recipients of this government transfer of money. So they are not really functioning at the income level, 295, but more like 110. So you get to the end of the day, the real difference between the highest and lowest income earners is not really, as the government tries to say, and as the Democrats are trying to say, that the highest income earners earn 60 times lower than the bottom income earners. The real fact is, Get ready for this? 3.8 to 1. That's the difference between net take home, what you have to live on. Very, very, very different picture of income inequality. There's much more data in this article by Senator Phil Gramm, but I'm not going to read it to you today. I want to urge you to read it yourself and actually to have it available to share with people, because I do think good-hearted, loving Americans, sadly, especially women, get really, really pulled, driven, concerned about income inequality, and they hear numbers spewing out from the American left, from the Census Bureau, from left-wing advocates saying, look at these differences in numbers, this is outrageous, we have to fix this. And just stop and think about this as I close out the first 5 today. When the left touts these numbers about income inequality, what they are getting at is they want the taxpayers to authorize them to take more money from those who work and earn it, take it up to Washington, and distribute it to the people who are the lower income earners. But they've already been doing that. That's what started with the Great Society. We've been doing that since the 1960s. We have been redistributing wealth in this country, and we've been redistributing it to the point that it's really, we've talked on the show other times about, the whatever it is, the bottom 10% of America is wealthier than 67% of the rest of the world. We may have, if you can play with numbers, and if you're a statistician or a mathematician, you can play with numbers all day long. But the bottom line is there is not this massive 60 times difference that the left tries to paint between the lowest and highest income earners that justifies their political mission to raise taxes on the rich and to create more government programs, therefore creating more dependency on government programs, which is what the American left lives on. A growing dependency class designed to make more and more Americans unable to function and survive on their own, more dependent on government, and gives the American left more power, which is indeed all that they're really after. And that, my friends, is today's First 5.